What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and when we think about what drives Pokemon prices over time, there's really only two factors. There's supply and there's demand. And one of the reasons I love this video series so much is because I think this encapsulates both of them into one awesome data set. So today what we're going to be looking at is the actual month-over-month grading volume at PSA. And again, think about those things, supply and demand. If people are sending a bunch of these cards in to be graded, that means the demand must be there. And again, if they're turning around and getting them graded, that's going to increase the overall supply of that card. So there's a lot of really cool takeaways in this. Now, I will say this, we've been doing this video series for a very long time, years at this point, and what has been happening over the last 3 or 4 months is nothing short of amazing. The grading volume has been through the roof. It has just been incredible to see the supply and the demand side of things from a PSA perspective. So today we're going to deep dive into some what I think are the really cool key points here in this video. We're going to be looking at the most graded cards. We're going to be looking at the most graded sets. We're going to be looking at the most graded characters. At the end of the video, we're going to look at the gem rates by all of these different awesome grading companies. So there's a lot to take away from this. In this video, I try and go a little bit slower because there's a whole bunch of data points, and it really is just a lot of fun. And to me, it's fascinating. We're actually seeing a big shift in terms of grading volume that we haven't seen for quite a while. So I look forward to highlighting that and talking to you about it throughout the course of this video. But as you will see as we get through this, there's a ton of work that goes on behind the scenes to put this together for you. Lots of data points, lots of graphs. And so if you find value in it, if you think it's valuable, and if you're having fun along the way, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I really appreciate it. So with that being said, the graph that's on the page right now represents TCG cards graded by month at PSA ever since January of 2022. So this is obviously a huge data set. And as you can see, over time, the grading volume has increased pretty steadily up until January of 2025. You can see that for those 3 years, there was a pretty even, steady growth going on. Obviously, there's always going to be ebbs and flows depending on how hot the sets are that are out recently. And there's a little bit of, seasonality involved in this as well. But if you look at what has happened throughout 2025, especially into February, March, April, May, June, July, like it has been crazy. Look at that. Last month when we did this video, there was over 1 million TCG cards graded at PSA. Now, if you look to the far right, you can see that we've come down off that ridiculous month with over 1 million cards graded, and 878,000 TCG cards were graded last month at PSA. So you might be thinking, oh my God, everything is slowing down. But I did went ahead and looked at how things have performed in the past couple Junes as well. And if you see this year, June of 2025, the overall TCG specific grading volume was down 16.4% month over month. In June of 2024, the TCG grading volume was down 14.2% month over month. And in June of 2023, the TCG grading volume was down 8.3% month over month. So no matter what, over the last couple years, it seems like June tends to be a little bit softer. We see a little bit of a regression in terms of grading volume. So obviously there's some seasonality involved in that as well. The other thing that I wanted to call out is, listen, the only way a card makes it into this data set is if it is graded. So once it is graded, then it comes into the PSA population report, and then it's captured in this data set. But you got to remember, there is a big lag between submissions and grading. A lot of times these submissions happen when cards are getting near all-time highs, when the market is incredibly hot, right? So if we think back 3 or 4 months ago, a lot of these Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield cards, the prices were really, really strong, and so a lot of people were submitting them. Now, over the last 3 to 4 months, we've seen a lot of those prices come back down, so I would expect we might see a little bit of softer grading volume. However, with all of that being said, listen, even though the TCG grading volume is down month over month, it is still the 3rd biggest TCG grading month of all time, which is absolutely insane. Again, almost 900,000 TCG cards were graded at PSA. And if you want to see this cool information that we've been looking at here, overall, there was 1.43 million items graded at PSA. 1.43 million items graded in total at PSA last month. And guess what? 911,000 of those were TCG and non-sports cards. The number's a little bit bigger because this data point right here includes non-sports cards. But the overall percentage of that is holding steady. So almost 64% of all of the cards that were sent to PSA last month fell into the TCG and non-sports category. That just goes to show you how strong the hobby is right now, how much focus, how much demand, how much people are into the TCG and non-sports space. It has been over 60% for the last 3 months. So again, it's just really starting to take on a whole lot of momentum. Now, the way that I kind of show this from a graphical representation, this is my own graph that I've been working on behind the scenes for a very long time. And when I started this whole journey, I was big into sports cards for a really, really long time. And then because my kids got into Pokemon, and I can really enjoy the hobby with my children, which I couldn't do as much with baseball, basketball, football cards. So that's why I really got into this. But then the more I got into it, I started to realize that I felt TCG in the long run, over terms of popularity, over terms of demand in the hobby, I just felt TCG was going to overtake what I call the ball sports. So this graph right here represents baseball, basketball, and football, grading volume combined, which I call the ball sports. So those baseball, basketball, and football, their total grading volume combined, versus just the TCG category. So you see that orange line represents ball sports grading over, since December of 2023. And then you have the Pokemon, or TCG space as I call it, and how that grading volume has been. And you can see for almost the first year, it was really kind of back and forth, right? The ball sports and the TCG volume was pretty much the same. And then you can see there's a bit of a divergence there where ball sports took the lead. But if you look what has happened in 2025, it has been incredible. The lead that TCG has taken over ball sports in terms of grading volume has been absolutely shocking. Now you'll see both of them are down significantly. You see that sharp downturn towards the right of that graph. Both of them are down month over month, but that was what I was interested to see when I first looked at this data set. I didn't know, obviously I saw that TCG was down sharply month over month, but seeing that the ball sports is down sharply month over month as well, it really tells me a whole lot. There could have actually been some process, challenges at PSA, which has caused fewer cards to be graded over that period as well. It's really interesting to see both segments, the ball sports and the Pokemon segment, come down at the exact same rate month over month. So who knows, maybe something's going on at PSA, but either way, very happy to see them both moving in lockstep. But now let's start talking about all of the very cool things, cards and characters and individual sets. And we always start with the most graded cards, because to me, this is the most fascinating. And the biggest call out for me is I never in a million years would have thought that we would be this far after the launch of Prismatic Evolutions, and we don't have a single card on the most graded cards list here from PSA. If you remember, like the last big specialty set that came out, say 151. Obviously, there's some other big ones. Paldean Fates was really big too, but 151 was a game changer. But when 151 came out, we had multiple 151 cards that were listed on this data set, I don't know, maybe 3 months after, 4 months after. However, we haven't seen a single Prismatic Evolution card on here. Now, we've seen some Terrestrial Festivals, we got some Japanese cards that are on here, but we haven't seen any English cards. So for me, I'm kind of thinking, maybe, I don't know what it is. Maybe the print quality isn't that great, so people are a little gun shy about sending them in. Obviously, we know the pull rates are trash because obviously there are not a lot of them out there. Maybe the product supply isn't there. I don't know what it is. All I can say is I've been doing this for a very long time, and this is the first time we have had a set this new with this much popularity that hasn't had a single card pop up on this list. So lots to take away from that. And again, all that does is reaffirm my belief that in the long run, the set's going to be super popular, and I think the set's going to do really, really well from a pricing perspective. Now, some things are the same here. Iona's Watch Roll right there, that has been number one for quite a while. That comes from a booster box that you purchased over in Japan. It was a promo card. And then you've got the Eevee from the Prismatic Evolutions Elite Trainer box. That's a promo card. I don't consider that one of the regular cards. That's coming in at number 2. But again, what we've been seeing over the last couple months too is Japanese cards as a whole have been heating up. This list, I don't know, maybe it was a year and a half ago, was dominated with Japanese cards. And then they almost completely disappeared. We'd have 1, maybe 2 on this list over periods of months and months and months. But over the last 3 to 4 months, the Japanese cards have really started to cement themselves again. Last month, 6 of the 10 cards on this list were Japanese. This month, 7 of the 10 on this list are Japanese, with a huge, huge push from Battle Partners. Battle Partners is just absolutely crushing it on here. You see multiple cards on here. The only thing too I wanted to call out about the English cards is there's only 1 non-promo English card on this list, okay? And that comes from the 151 set. Again, I talk about these big monster sets, the Charizard Special Illustration Rare from 151 is a card for the ages. I've talked a ton about that card recently, and I just think it's really, really at a fundamentally strong buying point right now at $185. But neither here nor there. That is the only non-promo English card on this list, so we'll have to see if the English cards start making a bit of a comeback here relatively soon. Now, the next thing we talk about is the most graded sets, and we actually do have Prismatic Evolutions, which comes up on here. I think it comes in at number 7. So a lot of the cards are being submitted, enough to make it in the top 10 most graded sets, but again, not seeing 1 or or two individual cards on the previous list. Again, I just think the pull rates are so bad. Maybe the print quality was low. Just a lot to take away from there. But no surprise, we have Terrestrial Festivals there at number 1. And then obviously 151, as I've said a million times over, is incredibly popular. It doesn't matter if it's in the English or Japanese side of things. I am a big believer 151 is at a phenomenal buying point right now. I'm doing a whole different video on that, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But you see English 151 comes in at number 2. We talked about Battle Partners. Battle Partners comes in at number 3. Look at Crown Zenith. That has been a big surprise for me. Crown Zenith has been on this list for about 6 months in a row. Again, we're talking about the final specialty set from the Sword and Shield era, the final set in the Sword and Shield era, and yet it is still popping as one of the most graded sets month over month here on the list. It's absolutely incredible. And then look, you got Journey Together is on here. Lots of people are getting Journey Together graded. And then you got Surging Sparks. Surging Sparks outside of Destined Rivals is my number 2 favorite set in terms of regular sets here in the Scarlet and Violet block. So lots of interesting things here going on in terms of the set. Some things are surprising, some things not so much. It's going to be interesting to see once Destined Rivals gets to mature a little bit, how quickly it jumps on here. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually start seeing it next month or the month after. I think a lot of people are ripping Destined Rivals, and I think Destined Rivals is going to be on here in short order. So next thing we talk about is the most graded subjects. And traditionally, there's not a lot of movement here on the list, but I will say this. Pikachu has never held the number 1 spot as long as it has this time around. It is fascinating to me. Usually Pikachu might make it up there in the number 1 spot, maybe like right after Surging Sparks comes out, right? And you've got some really big Pikachu cards on there. But traditionally, again, we've been doing this video over a couple of years, almost always Charizard holds that number 1 spot. So it's been very interesting to me to see Pikachu hold it for as long as it has. The other thing that was interesting is obviously with Prismatic Evolutions, that drove a whole lot of interest in Evolutions as a whole. And Evolutions were on this list very predominantly over the last 3 to 4 months. But we've seen Espeon drop off, we've seen Leafeon drop off, and Gengar and Zapdos are back on. And Gengar and Zapdos are characters that have been just mainstays here on this list. So not a flash in the pan, but let's be honest here. When we think about Evolutions, obviously you got Umbreon, you got Sylveon, those are number 1, number 2, and then you got Espeon and Leafeon, which are still wildly popular, awesome characters, obviously, but not surprised to see them fall off and to see Gengar and Zapdos come back on. Zapdos is almost always on this list, so really, really cool here. And then the Wattrel, obviously Wattrel was driven by that promo card, but that one has dropped off. The interesting thing to me was the Charmander dropped off. Charmander will probably be back on relatively soon, but that Venusaur, again, as that Venusaur in that 151 set, as those prices start to get more and more approachable, I think more people are going to be buying them and sending them in to get graded, so no surprise to see Venusaur on this list. Now, the next thing that we're looking at right here, and I always preface this with take it with a grain of salt, but gem rate by era by all of the different brands right here, and PSA is up a little bit versus where it was in the previous month. But what we see with PSA is as Japanese grading volume increases, then the overall gem rate at PSA and the TCG space increases, because as you and I and everybody else knows out there, those Japanese cards are printed with the highest degree of quality. Most of them have gem rates over 90%. When you look at the Scarlet and Violet era from an English perspective, most of those sets have a gem rate below, almost all of them have a gem rate below 50%. Matter of fact, as I'm saying this out loud, I don't think a single one of those sets have a gem rate over 50%. And when you think about things like 151, just because it's top of mind for me, the gem rate for that set is like 33%. And then you get Paldea Evolved, right? I think the gem rate for that was 30%. So the number of Japanese cards versus the number of English cards that are being submitted to PSA are going to drive that number up or down. The other big takeaway from this one was CGC. I've been talking a lot about CGC every single month because the grading or the gem rate in those most recent eras has been incredibly high. It was as high as I think 67% last month, and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out. If you see the grading or the gem rate in the 2020s for CGC and the TCG space last month dropped from 67% down to about 52%. So could be a data set error. I don't really think that it is. We'll just have to keep an eye on it and see what happens. But that is a huge, huge fall for CGC in the TCG space. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it. It's going to be interesting to see. But this is just kind of like a fun way to end the video, is looking at all these different gem rates. You should always grade with the company you trust the most and you feel is going to give you the best return, or you feel just makes you the happiest inside, right? Like that's all that matters in terms of this. Don't use this to base your grading decisions off of. And then the final one is I just like to look at how the overall grading market has moved improved over time. This includes everything, all the different ball sports, all the non-sports, tickets and everything, because as I always say, listen, we all benefit from a strong collectible hobby. And what we want to see is we want to see growth over time. And if you look at this, I think this represents a really, really steady growth over time. Again, you see that this month is down significantly over last month, but as I shared in the original side, I think there's a lot of seasonality involved in that. Overall, I think the momentum is really strong. Overall, I think the hobby's in a phenomenal place. I am very, very excited that we have this mega series, which is going to be coming out. I was worried that Scarlet and Violet was going to end. We were going to have a different generation that comes in and everything was going to go through a lull, but I think it's going to push right through the stall. I think this mega series is going to be huge. I think we're going to have a lot of high demand, at least for the next year, probably year and a half, which is going to keep the market strong. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to have you along the way. If you found value in this video, if you had a ton of fun, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I hope you have an epic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, everybody. Thanks. Bye.